The commission issued a memorandum from the sheriff on March 9th in regards to budget adoption clarification and question in regards to the two bottom line budget, and does that two bottom line budget resolution, which was resolution 4616, which addressed the ability of an elected or department to adjust their budget bottom lines by $15,000 automatically, and for the sheriff to be able to modify his budget by $50,000 automatically without coming to the Board of County Commissioners between salaries and benefits and operations. The question that the sheriff put forward in his memorandum was to identify the fact that it probably doesn't address the budget for 2017, and to ask the commission to consider either reissuing another resolution or correcting or addressing the question of what exactly is the methodology to change budgets for 2017. Tim had reviewed it as well. It was my consideration as well to say that this resolution 4616 is specifically identifying budgets of 2016, and as such is probably not, and I don't want to budget them out, but is probably not appropriate for making modifications to the budget of 2017.
Yeah, I was first asked to review this resolution, well, obviously back in 2016 when I put it forward, but then asked by the sheriff's office to review it after 2016 and in conjunction with the 2017 budget, and whether or not this the terms of this resolution would be applied to the 2017 budget. In a strict reading of the resolution, I don't think it does. I think it only applies to the 2016 budget. There's a couple of reasons for that. The title of the resolution says, the title is Resolution Amending Resolution Number 6615, which was the adoption of the 2016 budget from 15, regarding the management of the 2016 budget. I don't think that's vague. What the intent was, I'm not sure specifically, but a literal reading, and I think a logical reading would be that Resolution 4616 and the contents therein apply to the management of the 2016 budget.
So we have a couple of options. One is that we can redo Resolution 4616 and apply it to 2017. We could redo 4616 and apply it for all budget years, or we can do nothing and allow for the process that says anybody that would request a change or a modification in their budget from salaries and benefits to operations can come to the commission at any point in time and ask for the authority to do so.
So I have a few questions that I had after I reviewed this, and then so I'm going to go through those just kind of briefly, and then I'll invite the other commissioners to weigh in as well. So I guess the first question I have is, so in absence, or what's happening now? How are we approaching these now? If this,
we haven't had any, so
okay,
there
so
has
there
been no
has,
need
okay.
to.
And then, you know, I guess sort of the philosophical question then is, I know we have kind of a less than a year sample size, but the intent was to add a layer of budgetary accountability. Is that a fair assessment?
It was to also allow a little bit of flexibility for this.
Okay.
The reason for the separation, but on this, what happened was some of the departments were coming up $5, $10 shy or whatever, some a little more, and they needed a little bit of flexibility, so they didn't have to come to us for something that would be there.
And then, so do we think, I mean, has it been effective in achieving that, do we think?
Has it been effective in in requiring that salaries and benefits be spent for salaries and benefits and operational dollars be spent for operational dollars? Yes.
And then, so I guess today is sort of because of the request came from the sheriff's office, but what are the impacts then to the other departments? So, I mean, have there been, in last year, were there a lot of requests made for that? So I guess I'm trying to
How effective?
paint a picture because I wasn't here. So, how much was this utilized last year?
Going back in recollection, I don't recall there being a specific request to transfer any funding from salaries and benefits to operations or vice versa.
Okay.
Do you recall if there were any? Yes.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
But most of us, I think, took advantage of that.
That you used it or
You
you did
used
a
it
special
or the-
request?
Or that you
No,
went beyond the
I-
limit?
We did 15, up to 15,000.
Yeah, so you used it, you didn't.
Yeah, so I guess my, maybe put it a little bit clearly, more clearly. So you found the 15 sufficient and there was no need beyond the 15?
That's
Yeah.
Okay. And then, okay.
correct. Yes. There was no special request to go beyond what was authorized here.
Okay. I'm guessing that was a different scenario in the sheriff's office,
Well,
hence the letter.
Yes, Commissioner, we had actually, that 1550 is not sufficient on 14, on our size of operation, so we actually had to do a supplemental. But we did fill out budget transfer forms that never were processed.
Okay.
But our remedy, Commissioner, was to, we needed a supplemental, there wasn't enough budget authority.
A supplemental or a transfer?
A supplemental on the,
So you need additional money?
we
not
needed
the
additional
ability-
because of the CBAs that were approved in October by the Commission.
Okay, so that's a different question.
But well, I think Commissioner was asking though, Trudy, whether that 15, is that correct? You're asking if the 15 was enough, the $15,000 transfer, 50 was sufficient to cover the issues that were in the 16 budget adoption.
Yeah, so so you guys had, the sheriff's had 50.
Yeah, but that wasn't, I mean,
And
even
everybody else had
100 wasn't
15,
enough.
correct?
But you needed additional money.
You
above
needed,
the
you needed
bottom
authority
line.
beyond
Right,
the 50.
because just moving the money around wasn't going to take care of our issues on what the original adoption of our budget was 13.6.
Okay.
The ending budget, it took till the last week of the year to get it up to the 14.7 that was needed at the beginning of the year.
Okay, but that necessarily wouldn't have been captured within the 50
No,
transfer.
that
Okay, so
wouldn't
that's
have
a-
remedied it at all.
Okay, okay.
In fact, that's why Commissioner Sheldon said at the time, we were looking at that in March, that we needed to rescind the resolution and just try adopting the budget the way we used to at bottom line for each of
That would
them.
not have increased your budget.
No, but it still didn't remedy and
So
then
that's not why Commissioner Sheldon voted no. The need to increase the budget is a completely different conversation.
he just said that there was a lot of discussion with the elected officials on the 29th of June, I think, when they were to start the 17th process. Were all dismayed at the way that the budget was adopted and the way they had to operate their departments. No, we didn't find there was a cost savings for that, it was just difficult to operate.
And then, one more question, and then I'll kind of end with just a comment. So is this perhaps the need for this, does this highlight a potential flaw in the two bottom line approach? Because, well, what,
Is there a
so, I
flaw?
mean, maybe not,
Anybody can come to the committee, the two bottom line approach is a methodology that the commission put forward to manage expenditures from salaries and benefits to be paid to salaries and benefits. And that operational costs be paid for operational costs. And if there are savings in salaries and benefits, that they not be used for operations and or vice versa. There is a mechanism in place as a process to come to the commission to say, without having to go to a public hearing for budget supplementals or modifications or increased appropriations, to ask that a department or an elected move between either one of those, any amount of dollars, to say, I got $500,000 in salary savings or $15,000 in operational savings, and I need to put it into salaries and benefits. That requires a briefing, acknowledgement by the commission. The commissioners authorizing that, and then a budget transfer can be prepared for that.
An interfund transfer as opposed to a supplemental request asking for
Correct.
more money,
It
which
is
the
an
law-
internal
the law
budget
requires
use.
a budget transfer and all the hearings that go on.
Correct.
Okay, so the last thing that I'll say at this point is I kind of think we're meeting next week with all the electeds in the county, and I think this might be a good discussion point to have together. There's only 5 electeds here, 6. Sorry, you can, I'm sorry. I always do that to you. I did that to you when I got sworn in. Did it today, my apologies. Yeah. So I think there's only 6 of us here. I'd like to continue the conversation with all the electeds present. Commissioner?
I was very much in favor of doing the 2 bottom line approach because it was very difficult for us in trend analysis to identify what was the cost of doing government for operations and for personnel. Because over the years, it was very difficult to capture the cost of personnel because so many unfilled positions the monies were spent in the operational side. And my desire to do the 2 bottom lines was so that we could have a very clear idea of what the cost of doing government is, because so much of our budget is on personnel. When $100,000 is moved from personnel down to operational costs that are one-time costs, you don't have a good feel as you look down over the years of what it costs. But that's not a deputy's on the line, etc. This resolution was in response to, as Commissioner Netherman said, to the department heads and elected officials wanting a little bit more flexibility on smaller, unanticipated operational costs. So those little blips would not necessarily affect our long-term trend analysis. I would like to keep a 2 bottom line approach. If we were to do anything from here on, I do want to speak to you, hear from the other elected officials about how difficult this has been to but I think that I would be very much in favor of adopting a new resolution that did not have a date in mind for this long-term, and if another commission comes on board and doesn't like this process, then they can change it.
So, yeah, we're going to address both of the 2 bottom lines in this at the same time. In my opinion, also very much in favor of the 2 bottom lines, and I think it was an absolute necessity. At one point, we had a situation where an elected official came in and requested a huge amount of money for overtime. And the question came up, well, where's the unfilled salaries? Where did that go? Could never get an answer. And we're not talking a few $100,000, we're talking $500,000. Throughout history, that seems to be an issue where that seems to occur. We're not going through a budget process, the money gets spent in different places. I think it's our responsibility to keep track of that money and where it goes. That is our job. And with that being said, we needed it to go through a budget process. Plus, my goal had always been to have as many officers on the street as I could, so I wanted those positions filled. I'm not going to hide that's what I took issue with. So when the time did come and we went ahead and went to the 2 bottom lines, there was a little bit of a confusion on how to handle it and how some of these smaller issues may come up. I think it was Auditor Herr who was saying, it could be $5 or $100 at the end, but I still have to go through a special process in order to do it. Can we fix it? The very first one to talk to me was Under Sheriff Barrett. And oddly enough, I went through him first. When we first came up with the idea of the $50,000 and stuff, he was in favor, but then that changed as politics go on. But at the time, that was where I first bounced it off, and then I took it to the other electeds, and everybody seemed to like it. It was better than what we had, not perfect, but it was definitely a way of allowing them the leniency they needed to do their job. With that being said, something was said this year that we can say is just a straight accident, but I think I think some of the reason why it happened is because we have this two bottom line authority. This year, the sheriff announced that for the first time in 30 years, all the positions for the deputies have been filled. I don't think that was an accident. When before we would have 5, 7 at a time forever, but for the first time in 30 years it gets filled, I think this has something to do with it. And I'm not going to apologize for wanting more officers on the street, so that's one of the reasons why. But also, though, we were able to account for that money. We knew where it went this time, instead of it just falls in whatever line. I don't think the sheriff did anything improper. I want to make that clear. He was allowed to spend it how he did within his own budget. Up until that time, he was completely allowed to. There's nothing wrong with that. And my job was to make sure that money was spent to the way we had asked for it to be spent, and that was in people on the street. So I am also in favor of extending this out with no end date, so that we can continue to move it forward, because I do think it has been successful, and I definitely do not want to change the two bottom line.
I just wanted to add that this is not a requirement or a restriction under state auditors' guidelines or RCW. This is strictly a county developed and a county managed and maintained process and request. So there's nothing in here that the state auditor is dictating a process or dictating a set of restrictions. These are restrictions that the commission have put around their electives and their departments, and not a function of what the state auditors require.
One of the things to share is, when we were going through all this process, did a few phone calls around, and was surprised to find out that even doing Thurston's, you know, they do something like this when it comes to their wages. Then I contacted Kitsap County, and they are line item, which is what we used to be. They're allowed to change their budget 4 times a year throughout the line items, without the actual line item. We're still very, very lax in comparison to those other counties. They felt they had to go that route in order to protect their budgets. Well, I can understand that, but for us, I think it's been good that we just went with this separation in order to protect our budgets.
And I think it also helps the case of, I don't remember the bill number, but the request from the Association of Counties for more flexibility on property tax increase. And that when we can show over a period of time that the cost of personnel increased at 6% per year, when we're only allowed to increase our property tax by 1%, it makes our case a lot stronger. And that trend analysis has been sorely lacking in the county. And if we were to ask our budget manager to try to pull up that kind of information, the type of work you'd have to do just to be able to identify how much of the budget increase was due to salary increases, CBAs, even health care. When the money's getting moved around, then she has to go back and retract those sorts of things. And so I think it will help us have better fiscal control.
Which I think is our job.
I do want, since the sheriff isn't here, he's in Wenatchee right now, I don't want to leave anyone with the impression that we have not had all our positions filled since I have been there, and it's because of the process we have to use. It takes a year, sometimes 2 years to get positions filled, and it's a civil service process that's holding it up, not because of the way the budget's adopted. So I don't want to give the impression that we're not filling positions or that we've had them full, or we've filled them because of the way the budget's adopted. It's because of the process we have to use. We have 9 unfilled positions right now.
I just know that the sheriff came before us and said for the first time in 30 years he filled all the positions, the deputy positions. That's what I'm saying, he said. That wasn't me, that was him that came here and said
Yeah,
that.
but you just said that. What did he
No,
say that to you?
He said that to this room, I believe he even said it on the radio as well, that for the first time in 30 years he filled all the deputy positions. That was a big day.
Okay. So Frank, next steps?
We'll bring it up at the elected officials meeting, and discuss it there. And then, as a result of that, I'll bring the briefing item back to the commission for direction as to how to proceed.
Okay, very good.